So we now live in a world where sugar, for most people, sugar is a much greater danger to their life than war. Hello, I'm Yuval Noah Harari. I'm a historian and philosopher, the author of Sapiens and Unstoppable Us, and I'm very happy to be here at Tweak India. You know, lots of people today, they have issues with food, that we all the time feel that we eat too much, or we eat too much junk food, or we eat too much sweet things. And the question often comes up, if all these sugary and fatty foods are not good for us, why do they taste so good? It makes no sense. I mean, is there something wrong with my body? And then by studying the history of our species, you understand the answer. Again, 1,000,000 years ago, when you live in the forest, there aren't many sweet things, there isn't much food, and there aren't many sweet things around. The only sweet things are either honey, or more commonly, fruits, ripened fruits. Now, if you walk along in the savannah and you encounter a tree full of ripe figs, sweet figs, the most sensible thing to do is eat as many of them as quickly as possible. Because if you eat just a few figs and then go and say, okay, I'll come back tomorrow, I eat 3 more figs, you come back tomorrow, nothing is left. The baboons ate everything. So we're programmed by the history of our species that if you encounter something sweet, eat as much of it as quickly as possible. And the society we now live in, the modern society with all the supermarkets and refrigerators and all that, this is, just the last few generations. So basically our bodies, they are still programmed to live in the savannah. They don't know we now live in these big cities. It makes it easier for us to have some kind of compassion towards our own weaknesses. There is not, if I want to eat an entire chocolate cake, there is nothing wrong with me. There is a problem of this mismatch that we now live in a very, very different situation than what we were programmed for. This is one of the ways, I think, that history is connected to our life, and history can help us with very practical issues. Humans, again, are programmed by evolution to stay away from things that are a source of disease. So, if like a rotten corpse, or like somebody puked or something, this is disgusting, we stay away from it. So disgust is a mechanism that was formed by evolution to protect us from things that could be dangerous for us. Now, what happens in history is that very often you see that politicians and leaders and religions, they hijack this mechanism for political purposes. They make people feel disgust, not from rotten corpses or puke, but from certain people. They tell this story that a certain group of people are a source of disease and danger. And this is where all the talk of pollution and impurity comes, that some people are impure. And you see this story in every culture in the world. I think this is one of the important lessons of history, to be able to understand how, these biological mechanisms are used against us, say, to divide society. Violence is not a law of nature, it's always a human decision. This is a decision, a bad decision of certain leaders, of certain politicians. On the other hand, I don't think we can shield children from violence. It's in the world, it's all around them. I also think when we teach children about history, we shouldn't kind of take all these violent episodes and put them under the carpet, not to see them. We need to think how to present it to children in a way which will not overwhelm them. If you just kind of bombard children with horrible stories about murder and rape and genocide, then you just terrify them, and they feel anxious, they feel helpless. So I think the key is to talk about violence, but in a way that to some extent empowers the children, makes them realize that yes, there is violence in the world, we cannot hide this, but it's up to us to prevent it. Even though a single individual, of course, cannot change the world, when people cooperate, we can together reduce the level of violence in the world. To give maybe just one statistic or two statistics, in 2019, which is the last year we have reliable evidence for, a total of 70,000 people around the world were killed in wars and conflicts, which is a lot of people, of course, 70,000. But compared to that, more than 1 million people died in car accidents, and about 1.5 million died from diabetes. So we now live in a world where sugar, for most people, sugar is a much greater danger to their life than war, which looked at from some perspective, it's a huge achievement. I mean, we evolved for millions of years to understand the world through emotions. Emotions encapsulate, they contain the wisdom of millions of years. So again, it doesn't mean we give up the intellect, but ideally they go together. Democracy is not just elections. Elections are just a very important part, but just one tool in the toolkit of democracy. If you have only elections, you can very quickly become a dictatorship, with elections being just a ritual. The real essence of democracy is to have an ongoing conversation throughout all the year, not just one day in 4 years, where people are free to express their opinions, to debate, and to, maybe most important of all, to admit mistakes and change their opinions and their decisions. The essence of democracy, I would say, is the ability to say, we made a mistake, let's try something else. In a dictatorship, it doesn't happen. The dictator never admits a mistake. Even if there are huge problems, they always blame it on somebody else. In a democracy, you have a large number of institutions that can correct each other. So if there is corruption in the government, the press can expose it, the courts can intervene, people can then vote for maybe a different party. You have this ongoing conversation with constantly the ability to correct mistakes. It's not easy and it can't be done every time, but ideally, if you're not sure of something, if you don't know, I think it can be, again, very empowering to tell the kid, actually, I also don't know the answer to your question, and that's fine. That's okay not to know things and to admit it. Let's investigate together. And it can be, you can't do it every day, but if it's an important question, every once in a while, to explore together with the child, looking for evidence, looking for answers. This can be a wonderful experience for parents and children together.